Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with more Total War Warhammer 2 multiplayer action. We're going to go ahead and pause it as we are getting right to the fun here. Empire versus Beastmen. I don't normally pause for the overview, but since we've got some Vanguard shenanigans, I want to pause so we don't miss any of the fun. My Empire army here is going to be Zittler's REIKSGUARD over here. We've got another unit of REIKSGUARD supported by a Warrior Priest with Banner of Eternal Flame to turn them basically into like Knights of the Blazing Sun, but not exactly. We've got Spearmen and Swordsmen mixed in the front line, a single group of Flagellants in the ace position, Boris and an Amber Wizard, with a couple units of Empire Knights in reserve. For my opponent, he's got Khazrak on foot, some Gorherds with shields, including Blackhorn's Ravagers, Centaurs with throwing axes, a Gorbel, Brave Shaman, Lore of Death, and Korok's Manrippers. And yeah, there's one unit of Centaurs with great weapons as well. So obviously I don't want to get these Pistoliers too tangled up in melee here without support, so I'm going to go ahead and skedaddle. Meanwhile, the Zittler's REIKSGUARD do have Vanguard. They Vanguarded right on top of some of these Gorherds, which is great for them. REIKSGUARD do have great sustained combat stats. That's kind of their advantage over like Empire Knights. Zittler's REIKSGUARD in particular, because they are a regiment of renown, have really good combat stats. So other REIKSGUARD here charging in, just sandwiching that unit. You can see the trying to draw the Centaurs away here. They overcommit a little bit, so I just go ahead and countercharge with all the Pistoliers and the REIKSGUARD and everything. The Warrior Priest charging in. He's going to drop his Faith buffs as well. Also gets in a nice hammer swing there. Hammer of Sigmar juicing up all those units, especially with the Pistoliers, will make them quite scary. They've got 46 melee attack and flaming damage, which is just amazing. Meanwhile, in the wide open field here, you can see my opponent not really wanting to overcommit too hard here. He's going to pull back some of his forces to try and support. Looks like an Overcast Doom and Darkness to maybe try and proc a Terror Route. I'm not really sure. Yeah, it looks like Overcast Doom and Darkness there. And then the Gorbel is going to pop the Axe of Man to try and cause a Terror Route. Unfortunately, most of these units are not low enough leadership to where they're really in danger of terror routing. Zittler's REIKSGUARD as well are immune to psychology straight up, so they will not terror route regardless. But you can see here we've got, let's see here, Manticore summoned. He's getting taken down by Khazrak, which is a bit unfortunate, but that's fine. We're going to dispatch Boris and the Amber Wizard in just a moment to help support this frontline engagement here. Obviously, Gorherds will trade normally very well against state troops, but when they're surrounded like this, it's not the best. And obviously, with Boris coming in, dropping a massive sweeping splash attack and terror and everything, the Blood Roar, it's just going to be a bad time for those Beastmen. They're going to want to terror out very quickly, which they do. Meanwhile, over here, the Pistoliers just going into skirmish mode now, just counter-skirmishing against those Centaurs with great weapons, being very cost-effective there. And yeah, if they get too close, we can go ahead and just counter-charge as well. The Korok's Manrippers are on station, so this is a little bit dangerous. You can see a few axes being thrown in the side, and the Korok's Manrippers also going to come in and get a few attacks here. They might be able to drag down a few unit models, but generally we're going to try and just keep away from them as much as possible. Boris being very aggressive here, charging straight in after the Gorbel. It's a little bit of a dicey move, but thankfully I can disengage pretty much whenever I want, just run away, since we've taken out most of the Centaurs, various types. The Blackhorn's Ravagers now fully surrounded by Flagellants and Swordsmen here. Not a great time for them. They do have really good combat stats. 36 melee attack with their sort of Beastman Frenzy active, 47 melee defense. Honestly, a pretty good regiment of renown that you don't see too often, but you can see here the Spearmen engaging on Hounds here. Both Khazrak and the Gorbel do get their paws on Boris, and you can see he starts to take a ton of damage here. That is going to pull the balance of power back pretty significantly, but at the same time, we're running in Empire Knights to support here. The Manticore is also going to come support, as does the Amber Wizard. Boris just about routes here, but manages to hold his leadership together, and now with these three monstrous units, suddenly things are going to turn against Khazrak and the Gorbel here. We've got Pistoliers supporting. You can see the Korok's Manrippers still just not really in a position to do much. It's one of the issues with elite halberd units, is that they just generally, because they're infantry, they're kind of slow. Now you can see they're moving into position to try and support here, but I mean, it's going to take them a while to get back over here, and by that time I could probably have finished off Khazrak potentially, but I'm going to have to just chill with Boris for a minute. Just kidding. I'm going to go straight back in here because we've got the Manticore distracting, so that means I can get a rear charge on the Gorbel here. And of course, getting a rear charge counts for quite a bit. We'll do a lot of additional damage, and Gorbolt's getting absolutely punted around there by the two big monsters. Kazarak also getting domed by the Amber Wizard here is not the best. Granted, Kazarak could do okay against the Amber Wizard in a sustained fight, but especially with the charge bonus active and everything, it's going to be really rough stuff. And that's pretty much it for the Beastmen. Gorbolt takes another charge, the leadership gives out, and that's game. So, well played to my opponent. Hope you guys enjoyed watching that one. Relatively quick battle, but I mean, most of the time when you're fighting as or against the Beastmen, the battles tend to be pretty quick. But from a build perspective, I think this worked out relatively well for me. I do like the pick of the REIKSGUARD here over Empire Knights a little bit, as they just give you a little bit more sustainability. You don't necessarily have to be as aggressive with microing them because they have better combat stats. State Troops did great in the front line. Flagellants, Pistoliers also super cost effective in this matchup. And I quite like this leadership core. Having the two monsters to charge down really gives you a lot of options for dropping terror all across the field. Not to mention the Amber Wizard can summon additional Manticores. Then the Warrior Priest gives you that fire damage just in case they bring Butchers of Kalkengard. You definitely want that. And of course the Hammer of Sigmar to help clean units up. For my opponent's build, I think he just went a little bit too narrow here. I think you definitely need to go wider. We'll talk a little bit more about the Beastman's build in just a minute, but you can see Blackhorn's Ravagers were able to get 117 kills. Not a bad performance at all. Definitely pretty solid there. So, for the Beastman side, there are a few units which, for me, are basically auto picks in almost every matchup. One of them is, of course, the Eye of Morslib. This is just such a powerful unit. Even if the Empire ends up bringing artillery, the Beastmen, if you play your cards right, because they're fast, you can kind of usually get on top of their artillery without them being able to do too much damage to the Eye of Morslib. Typically, if your opponent has artillery and you have the Eye, you want to just play forward anyway. So yeah, Eye of Morslib I would definitely recommend. The Butchers of Kalkengard I mentioned already. The Empire does have good tools of dealing with them, but at the same time, I mean, 60 melee defense with regeneration, 110 weapon strength, they are a very, very strong unit. So I like to bring them in this matchup as well. Kazarak's not bad, honestly, but recently I've been playing around with a bit of Malagor. You take Mantle of Garok and Vile Tide to refresh Vigor, and then, honestly, you can probably cut this something wicked. It's really not that impactful. -4 leadership. Neither is this Icons of Vilification. And then you take double Gorbol. Only one of them needs the Slaughterer's Call. The other one you can cut down completely. I like to, at least, just to make them a lot cheaper. Then that kind of allows you to go a bit wider with your army. Blackhorn's Ravagers, not a bad idea. I like to have some Ungor Spearman Herd just to pad out numbers as well. Centaurs are definitely a good idea. Some Centaurs with throwing axes. I mean, you don't have too much more funds left at this point. So, I might just go ahead and pad out with some more Ungor Herd. They do kind of get run over by Empire Heavy Cavalry a little bit, so I might instead just change out for like some Hounds or something, try and pressure the Empire backline a little bit maybe. You could do some different things, certainly. Of course, if you're really worried about getting gooned, you can always swap out Malagor for Morghur. He's definitely the more competitive, if a little bit boring pick. And then obviously you'd want to take a caster. Lore of Death isn't bad, but personally, I would say you're going to want to probably take Spirit Leech to go after enemy heavy cavalry. Honestly, though, I like Lore of Wild just because the Mantle of Garok is such a good spell. It's one of the best buff spells in the game, honestly. It's a huge amount of melee attack and weapon damage at the cost of a little bit of armor, which, I mean, most Beastman units have low armor anyway, so that's not really a big deal. Especially using it like on the Butchers of Kalkengard, they can absolutely annihilate another unit. And at this point, we still do have enough to grab one Gorbol here. We'd have to maybe swap something out, like maybe swap this out, and I don't know, maybe do a couple of other things to afford the Slaughterer's Call, but you could take him completely stripped down, and that still is going to be pretty decent. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, though. It's definitely an interesting matchup, Empire versus Beastmen. Beastmen are in a little bit of a rough place now, but we'll talk about that more about that at a later date. Hopefully you guys enjoyed watching this one. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button so every time I upload a sweet new battle replay, you will be notified. I've got lots of cool content coming up for you guys. The tier list, I know I've mentioned several times, it's still not quite done yet. I'm almost finished. I just need to finish up a couple little things. So look for that coming out hopefully sometime within the next week or so. And yeah, it's definitely going to be a lot of fun. Spoiler alert, if you guys don't want to know any spoilers, turn off the video now, but Beastmen did not come out super well in that tier list, so I do have some Beastmen replays lined up as well. I'm going to be sort of showing how you can play them, even though they're not great. In terms of the tier list, they still can definitely handle in a multitude of matchups, so I look forward to that. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks again for watching. Goodbye for now.